Welcome to Cinema Recaps. Please like, share, and subscribe for more interesting videos. The film starts with an empty pharmacy where Evelyn is trying to find some medicine for her son Marcus, who is not well. Her mute daughter, Reagan, is also there, and she is making sure that her younger brother, Beau, doesn't cause a lot of noise. Everyone is barefoot, and Evelyn's husband, Lee, is waiting for them outside. That's when they notice Beau is holding a toy, and Lee carefully grabs the toy to take out the batteries. Beau can't hear either, and Lee tells him that the toy will cause too much noise, so he can't have it. However, Reagan feels bad for her brother, so she gives him the toy. They walk through the deserted streets and forests to reach a bridge where all of a sudden, Lee hears a loud noise behind him. Beau has turned on the toy, and his family is horrified. Lee dashes towards his son, but before he could get there, Beau is taken by a monster that comes out of the woods. 472 days later, Reagan can still remember all the trauma. She helps out her mother around the farm, and Lee keeps an eye on them using multiple security cameras. He's reading everything he can about the monsters, and he even tries sending distress messages to all international frequencies. In the evening, he goes out to find Marcus, who's playing inside the pickup truck. Marcus then goes to the basement, where Evelyn has made a baby room because she's pregnant. Lee, on the other hand, is sitting on top of the silo, looking at Beau's belongings before burning them. He can see lights coming on in the distance, and he knows that other people are hiding in the area. After dinner, the kids are playing a board game, when suddenly they hit the lamp and it starts a fire. Lee quickly grabs a rag to put out the fire, but all of this causes a lot of noise. They're all terrified that the monsters are going to attack them. They even hear a bang on the roof, but it's just a pair of raccoons who are leaving the house. They are making a ruckus, and they get squashed by the monsters. Later that night, Lee is in his office, and he is working on a hearing aid that he's making for Reagan. Evelyn gives him an earphone, and they both listen to some music while dancing in the office. The next day, Evelyn checks her blood pressure and records the reading. Meanwhile, Reagan is walking to the house, and she is making sure not to cause the floors to creak. She wants to go into Lee's office, but he grabs her and takes her outside. He says the office is not safe, and he also gives her a new hearing aid. Reagan says the hearing aids don't work, and she doesn't even want to try this new one. That afternoon, Evelyn is helping Marcus study. Lee is going out, and he wants Marcus to accompany him, but the kid is scared. Evelyn tells her son that he will be safe, and that he has to learn how to survive so that he can take care of his family. Marcus gets ready, but he tells Lee that he doesn't want to go. On the other hand, Reagan is begging Lee to let her go with him. Lee wants Reagan to help her mother around the farm, but she gets angry and walks away. She is feeling left out and tries the new hearing aid, but unfortunately, this one doesn't work either. She's given up and she just starts packing her things and leaves the house. In the woods, Lee takes Marcus to the river to check the fishing traps. Marcus is still scared, and Lee explains how the river is masking their noise, so they are safe right now. He then takes Marcus to a waterfall that's making a deafening noise. There, Lee screams and tells his son that as long as there is a loud noise nearby, they can talk and they will be safe. Back on the farm, Evelyn is finishing some laundry, and she's taking the clothes upstairs, but accidentally pulls a nail out of the floorboards. She then goes to the second floor and sits down in Beau's room, thinking about her son. Reagan is also missing her brother, and she walks all the way to the bridge to place the toy on Beau's memorial. It's getting late, and Lee is walking back home with Marcus when they have to stop because an old man is standing next to his dead wife. The man looks unhinged, and Lee tells him not to make any sound. This makes things worse, and the man lets out a loud scream. Lee knows what's gonna happen, so they quickly hide behind a giant tree. Pretty soon, many monsters swarm the screaming man and kill him. It's nighttime by now, and Evelyn tries to go down the stairs, but her water breaks. She's about to give birth, so she tries to go down to the basement, but steps on the nail and breaks an old picture. All this noise will bring the monsters, so she turns on the red lights to warn her family. She tries going back, but the monsters are already in the house. She is bleeding and in a lot of pain. She hides inside the basement as the monster comes there. She has to bite her hand to stop herself from screaming. A ringing timer distracts the monster, and Evelyn runs up the stairs and hides in the bathroom. Outside, Lee tells Marcus to light up the fireworks because they have to distract the monsters to save Evelyn. Evelyn, on the other hand, is giving birth, and she knows that she's going to scream. Right then, the fireworks start and the monsters get distracted. Reagan also sees the fireworks and makes a run for her home. Meanwhile, Lee grabs his gun and goes into the house looking for his wife. There aren't any monsters inside, and he finds the bathtub that still has blood. He's fearing that Evelyn is dead, but she knocks on the shower door where she's hiding with her newborn baby. Marcus, on the other hand, is walking back to the house when he hears some movement and gets scared. He runs through the cornfields, but bumps into a tractor and falls down. Back at home, Lee is carrying Evelyn and the baby to the barn, but the baby is crying and Lee has to rush into the basement. He puts on an oxygen mask on the child's face and then places him inside a soundproof box. In the field, Reagan is walking back when she sees Marcus's flashlight in the fields. She's looking at it when a monster sneaks up behind her. However, Reagan's hearing aid starts to let out a frequency that makes the monsters run away. Then, Reagan goes to pick up the flashlight, but she finds Marcus hiding under the tractor. Sometime later, Evelyn wakes up after having a dream about Bo's death. She sees Lee, who tells her that the soundproof room actually works, and they are safe. She's worried about her children, who are outside. Evelyn tells Lee that she feels guilty for Bo's death. She says that she should have carried her son on that day because he was too young to understand the danger. She asks Lee to promise that he will bring back Reagan and Marcus home safely. So Lee goes to find his kids while Evelyn tries to get some rest. The barn is destroyed and water is leaking into the basement. Lee is looking for Marcus and Reagan on the security cameras, but can't find them. The siblings are actually sitting on top of the silo, where they have lit a fire to signal Lee. Reagan thinks Lee won't come, but Marcus believes in his father. A few minutes later, Evelyn wakes up to see the basement that's now flooded with water. She also sees a monster standing in the corner. She slowly gets up and goes to grab the baby from the box. The monster is right in front of her, and she's hoping that the baby won't make any sound. She eventually hides behind the falling water that provides some protection, but the monster is still looking for her. However, its attention gets diverted when Marcus accidentally falls through the silo door. Lee also hears the sound, and he knows that it's coming from the silo. He sees a monster running through the fields towards the source of the sound. Inside the silo, Marcus is drowning in the corn, and Reagan has to jump in and help Marcus grab onto the metal door to save himself. She too starts to drown, but Marcus grabs her hand and gets her out. They are catching their breaths when Marcus hears the monster outside, and pretty soon it jumps into the silo with them. They try to hide under the metal door, but the monster is tearing through everything. However, Reagan's hearing aid again releases the frequency that irritates the monster, and it has to run away from that spot. They both get out of the silo and start walking back home. They eventually meet up with Lee, who is happy to see them. Evelyn also sees all of them on a security camera and she's relieved. However, this happiness is gone when Lee hears another monster nearby. He asks the kids to hide inside the pickup truck. As the kids hide, Lee goes to the tool shed to grab an axe, but the monster is sitting on the roof of the shed. It slams Lee and throws him away. Marcus sees this and lets out a scream, which attracts the monster's attention, and it attacks the pickup truck. Lee gets up and he's bleeding, but he sees the monster attacking his children. He knows they have no other choice, so he decides to sacrifice himself. He tells Reagan in sign language that he loves her very much, and then he screams loudly, causing the monster to run towards him. As the monster attacks Lee, Marcus starts the pickup truck and drives back home. Evelyn goes out to hug her kids, who are obviously distressed. They all go back to the office. Marcus grabs the baby, while Reagan sees how her father was working hard to make their life more secure. She also sees all the hearing aids that Lee was working on, and she starts crying along with her mother. However, they are still not safe because a monster enters the house, and it comes into the office. Evelyn grabs the shotgun, but she knows the monsters have a shield around their bodies and the gun won't work. The situation is desperate, and just then, Reagan remembers how her hearing aid caused problems for the monsters. So she puts it on, and instantly the frequency is making life hard for the monster, as well as her. The monster is in pain, so she grabs a hearing aid and puts it on the loudspeaker. The monster can't handle it. The shield around its face opens up and it collapses. Evelyn is wondering what happened when the monster gets up and she shoots the thing in the face. She figures out that the frequency is making the monsters vulnerable. She also knows that more monsters are going to come their way after hearing the gunshot, and pretty soon she sees two of them running towards the house. The film ends with Reagan cranking up the speaker volume to the max while Evelyn gets the shotgun ready.